Are you prepared for an attempt to impeach you?
The only way they can win, because they can't win the election, is to bring out the artificial way of impeachment. And the problem is you can't impeach somebody for doing the best job of any president in the history of our country for the first 2 years. And people have seen and people have watched what we've done, whether it's tax cuts. No, it's political, but, you know, it's supposed to be high crimes and misdemeanors. Well, there was no high crime. There was no misdemeanor. There was no problem whatsoever. The only thing I've done is created maybe the best economy we've had in the history of our country.
Maybe, maybe not. That was President Trump doubling down on his claim that he created the best economy we have ever had in the history of our country. And in the same vein, Press Secretary Sarah Sanders has offered a statement to NBC News listing his accomplishments. But for fact's sake, how much of all of that is really thanks to the president? Sanders said he, quote, ignited a booming economy with his lower taxes and higher wages. But the economy was already in the 8th year of expansion when Trump entered office. And those tax cuts, sure, they helped out big corporations by fueling higher deficits, and they basically haven't done anything to increase wages. Real hourly earnings in December rose on average just 1.1% compared to 1 year earlier when you factor in for inflation, except President Obama achieved a 1.8% increase in December 2015 without those massive tax cuts. President Trump, quote, established the USA as the #1 producer of oil and gas in the world. Well, the U.S. has been the #1 oil and gas producer for 7 years now. It is hard to say that that is all thanks to President Trump's policies, since he's only been in office 2 years. Next up, President Trump, quote, remade our judiciary. Well, this one is true. President Trump has appointed 2 justices to the Supreme Court. 30 judges have been confirmed for the United States Courts of Appeals. 53 have been confirmed for the U.S. district courts, and dozens more await confirmation hearings and nominations. Sanders also claims the president, quote, rebuilt our military. While the president has supported increases in defense spending, he has also called for massive cuts. His administration recently requested a 5% cut to the defense budget from the $716 billion allocated in 2019 to $700 billion in 2020. And finally, the claim that President Trump has, quote, renegotiated better trade deals. It's a little misleading. The president says he scrapped NAFTA for a much better deal with Canada and Mexico, the USMCA. In reality, the new treaty is just NAFTA 2.0. It's NAFTA with a different name, and it hasn't yet been approved by Congress. Meanwhile, he has been prosecuting a trade war against China that has spooked global markets. And of course, TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, was torn up with no replacement. These kinds of misleading statements have become commonplace for the president and his administration. The Washington Post is now tallying the total number of false or misleading claims President Trump has made while in office. In total, we're at 8,549. Of that, 802 of them, 802, have been false claims, otherwise known as lies, about the economy.
That's closing in on 10% of all
his. It is preposterous to say he has led the greatest economy in U.S. history.
The part about the oil is kind of interesting because we even hedged on that a little bit, saying it's hard to say that Trump's responsible for it. It's actually 100% possible to say he's not. That happened under Barack Obama for 5 years and continued under Donald Trump for 2 years. So what Donald Trump has to remember is that we are really appreciative of him not destroying a good economic run. That's not the same as taking credit for it.
Ali, in terms of the President Trump is great at selling the economy. Deregulation is a positive for big companies and small companies. But what led rise to the birth of that Trump voter, the forgotten voter, was this bifurcated economy, that the rich were getting rich and the poor were getting poorer. One thing has happened since President Trump is in office.
The rich get rich and the poor still get poor.
That has only stayed the same and become more exaggerated. So the fact that we've now heard that from President Trump's interview yesterday and from Sarah Sanders, you darn well know he's going to be leading with that tomorrow night. But now that he's in office, can you make these claims and promises when the American people are saying, well, it's not winning for me?
Yeah, I mean, last week he talked about how much of the wall is being built, right? So he's just getting into this new space where if you say it enough times, whether it's on CBS or at the State of the Union or wherever it is, there are some people who believe him. There are some people who maybe believe that there are new pieces of the wall being built. There are 0 miles of new wall being built. This is not the best economy in American history. But, you know, he seems to feel that 30% of Americans believe him, 35% of Americans believe him when he says it. I don't know. All we can do is fact check it.
And we're going to keep fact checking it.
Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.